Hello, one and all. Good evening, and welcome to Week 2 of the Blue Otter Platinum League. Season 11 continues tonight with Goon Squad Gaming going up against the Big Duck Entourage. GSG did taste defeat last week after a tough battle against Agni Kai. The Goons were able to secure the first Nexus in Game 1, thanks to some strong performances on some meta picks from the whole team, but they tried mixing up the draft a bit in Game 2. It did not end up working out, and Agni Kai were able to take the 2-1 victory. The Big Duck Entourage, on the other hand, are actually still untested. They technically did get the 2-0 last week, but the reason there's an asterisk there is because their Week 1 opponent, AIE Anguish, was a no-show on the Rift. Not exactly sure what happened there, but BDE did get their first win via FF, and now we finally get to see how they stack up against some of their competition. I am Crewman44. I am joined for tonight's cast, of course, by the very much acclaimed Alls. Alls, hello again. How we doing? Very true. Absolutely right, Alls. And as you can see, folks, we are already into our first drafting phase. Zyra, Wukong, and Wei going to get banned away by the Goons, and the Big Ducks are going to take away the Smolder, the Maokai, and the Zek. Very happy to see that Smolder ban on red side, personally speaking. Fair enough, fair enough. Certainly, I think a little bit more punishable in coordinated play as opposed to solo queue. But we are going to see the Vi locked away here, Alls, on B1. This is the pick that Necromancer, the Goon Squad jungler, did or was playing in that Game 1 victory that they did manage to get last week. So jumping right back on the Vi since it is available. The Poppy, though, feels... Poppy and Xayah feels like a pretty strong response. Clearly, the Big Ducks were ready for that pick, and now the Urgot and the Orianna coming through as we are just flying through this draft. Yeah, it is going to be very interesting to see. Definitely, it feels like, you do have some pretty stock standard stuff on both sides for now. But we are through the second ban phase now coming through already. The Ashe and the Seraphine banned away by the Big Ducks. Definitely makes sense to target some of those bot lane options. You know that's what the Goons still have to lock away. And over here for Goon Squad, banning away mid laners and supports could be the option. Aurelion Sol and Swain. Swain, a little bit of a flex there, but a little bit more of a focus towards the mid lane pool, it seems. Yeah, definitely. You were kind of mentioning earlier, it's a sort of a similar thought process as the Smolder, right? Where, it can be really powerful, it can be really strong, but when a pick is that weak in the early game, as you were just saying, theoretically teams should be able to craft a way to play against it and prevent it from reaching those late game levels of power. But speaking of late game levels of power, look who slipped all the way through the draft to B5. Also, our old friend Senna. True.
I've been muted for a hot minute here. My apologies, folks. That's
no.
awkward.
I'm just talking to myself this whole time, I guess. Or was I muted too?
No. You were audible, and they could see my lips move.
Amazing.
My microphone was just not running. As I was saying here, the Senna does concern me a little bit, because we're used to seeing Senna with a tank, with the kind of champion that can take that farm and use it so that she can stack up souls. With the Lux, they're going to be more focused on poke duty, which is going to limit the number of souls and limit the amount of scaling that Senna's going to have moving into the mid to late game. Not that she's not going to be powerful, but overall, it fills a very different niche, and I'm not sure, looking at what GSG has elsewhere, that I like the Senna not scaling.
Yeah. The fact that you don't really have any frontline or engage pick coming out in that bottom lane does, I think, leave the Goons a little bit light in that department. You know, they really only have the Vi for all of that, for engage and being the only frontline. Does feel a little bit risky. You know, Urgot can kind of stand in front of the Senna, I guess, but he's not going to be able to do that for very long. Especially against, you know, Xayah, Veigar are going to have a lot of damage to cut through that Urgot. So it's definitely feels like a very difficult draft to pilot for the Goons. You know, they obviously are not short on damage. They have plenty of that. But yeah, it does leave me a little bit puzzled, I think, the overall composition here.
Yeah, and on that note of peel, BDE has plenty that can just bust straight through it. The Malphite with the Unstoppable Force, the Poppy with the Keeper's Verdict to remove the Vi and Urgot from the fight entirely, the Rakan with the quickness and the Grand Entrance to get in behind onto these three very squishy, very immobile champions. BDE doesn't exactly have a high threshold of execution here, and that's not a bad thing. There is beauty in simplicity, but Poppy, Malphite, Veigar, these are champions that just have a couple of buttons that matter. So it's very hard for BDE to screw up, and they've drafted themselves into what in my mind is an almost certainly winning position.
Yeah, it's feeling like a pretty favorable draft for the Big Ducks on my end as well. Alls very much agree. You know, they have, you know, the Malphite and Rakan for engage, as you were just talking about. They have all the damage, all the scaling they could want with the Xayah and the Veigar. Very easy to play out. It basically plays itself, you know. And they're going to have no shortage of targets to look for either. You know, like you were also mentioning, all these squishy champions, very, very easy to engage on. You know, Lux, Senna, and Orianna, all three of them, no dashes and not going to be building any resists, not really going to be stacking HP. They're just prime targets for all of this engage, all of this burst damage to come out. So it does kind of feel like the Goons are going to have to maybe find like some humongous lead in the early game to where the Big Ducks actually are not able to blow everybody up. But that I don't even know if that would be enough, honestly, with this draft difference.
Yeah, that puts so much pressure on Necromancer too, because look at these lanes, look at the opportunities. Orianna, she does damage early with the ball and with command dissonance, but it's not enough to secure a kill, unless Veigar desperately misplays. Urgot, sure he hurts, but he doesn't hurt enough to kill a Malphite alone in the lane. And Senna Lux, that is not a lane that wins level 1, level 2. Sure, Lux does damage with Lucent Singularity, and Senna with that Q can poke through the minions a fair bit, but Xayah Rakan aren't under kill threat at any point. So there's going to be a ton of pressure on Necromancer, I think, to win pre-10, pre-12 minutes, and while that's probably easy for a Vi with the Vault Breaker and with the eventual cease and desist. I don't think that it's a large window, and there's not going to be much support there at all.
Yeah, feels very difficult to play out. The Goons, they were able to pick up the win in game number 1 that they played last week, and it was Necromancer on the Vi. So, maybe there's something there. Maybe they'll prove us wrong. But with this draft, I think we're very much aligned here on the caster desk that the Big Ducks are coming away with a huge advantage going into this first game, their first game of the season, right? So we're going to go into a short break, guys, before jumping onto the Rift for game number 1. But we'll see if the Goons are going to get that game 1 victory once again, or if the Big Ducks will make a splash in their debut. Don't go anywhere. Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to Summoner's Rift for our first game of the night, week 2 of the Plat League here in Blue Otter. Gonna have Goon Squad Gaming on the blue side to start us off, and the Big Ducks, of course, on the red side. Do you think we're gonna be seeing anything spicy at level 1, Ols?
I don't tend to think so here, crewman. There's not a whole lot of level 1 power on either of these teams. Although it looks like BDE is stacking, I think that's more in the attempt to find a catch. I don't suspect they're actually going to do anything crazy here. But they may prove me wrong, as they're looking for something.
Started W, gonna find the knockup over the wall, and the Poppy heroic charge. That's gonna be the first blood. Boy, oh boy, were you wrong, Ols.
I sure was. And, I want to point out another thing that I was wrong with, because we expected this Lux to be going support. That is an, air quotes, ADC Lux. That is Gengarifith taking that Lux and that Decker guy on Ghost Support Senna, which is certainly a sentence.
Yeah, that is what that Decker guy is playing. Already got the World Atlas in inventory and everything. So, yeah, that is certainly an interesting decision.
How are you feeling about that pivot here from the Goon Squad bot lane? Does this help them or not? Because I feel like it doesn't fix a lot of the core issues, even if it does give Senna some of that scaling back.
Yeah, I mean, my kind of general feeling on Senna, I've never really played much of the champ myself, so this is all kind of hearsay, honestly, but my general feeling is that it does tend to go a lot better for the Senna. I feel like you spike harder if you do prioritize the scaling with the souls as opposed to the scaling with the gold, with the items. So I actually do prefer the fasting Senna, whether being played in the support position or otherwise. That is just kind of my preferred variety of the Senna. So, you know, that much at least I am going to be happy about, as that Decker guy is taking a whole bunch of damage here as the enemy bot lane, the Zyra Khan, did take over to level 2 first. But yeah.
Very fair. I mean, we're seeing the issue with the lane already, in that Gengarithith and that Decker guy are so vulnerable to engages. If they get out from under this turret for any extended period of time, Axel and Ghost can just chase them down and burn them down fairly easily. Elsewhere, though, there's not a whole lot more for Necromancer to try and gank. Soul is already fully pushed up. Finch is already way down, as Decker guy taking a whole bunch of damage here again.
Light Binding will land this time, though. Prevents Excel from following up on that CC. So able to trade back a little bit now are the GSG bottom duo. Both junglers are pathing top here. So Poppy and Vi going to finish up their clears at approximately the same time. Poppy actually a little bit faster. Oh, actually, Vi skipped her Krug, so that is the reason. And Poppy skipped her Blue and Gromp. Interesting. So started Wolves there, it looks like.
So Vi is actually on a much faster timer here, being a full camp ahead, going into Rift Scuttler, and will take that before Poppy gets back on the map to look for the second Rift Scuttler. It's not going to allow Necromancer to try and contest this second one, I don't believe, unless he makes a beeline straight for it, and Poppy takes a stop off at Gromp, but it still does give a little bit more time for this Vi to start looking at ganks a little bit sooner.
Potentially, but, you know, ganking Malphite isn't really going to be all that productive. He is pushed up a little bit far in the lane, but that is not something that Necromancer wanted to go for. Has moved down towards this bottom river, but as you predicted, Alls, was not in time to contest the South Scuttle as another knockup comes through from Ghost. Finds that CC onto the Lux. Not going to be too consequential, though. So the junglers will find each other in the Tri-Brush.
Yeah, just a little wave hello there from the junglers. Good counter gank by Bardo, being there to make sure that there wasn't any chance of Axel and Ghost having their aggression used against them, but this hurts for the Vi because you don't have many attempts at these ganks before you start to get out of laning phase and it starts to get very difficult to affect the early game. So I'm looking forward to seeing, after they get this back off and get their first buy, what kind of changes they make where they're looking for their first real gank onto the map.
Yeah. Is going to be very, very important. You know, as we were also discussing earlier, this Vi, definitely a lot does come down to that, at least in the early game for GSG. Not able to find anything really just yet. Poppy has been hovering now towards this bottom lane for quite a while.
Yeah, being able to get a gank off here would be great. Let XL get super far ahead, and Ghost gets the knockup. I think they've got a good angle here.
Oh yeah, here he comes. The heroic charge into the wall is going to get the Lux with that one, and she had no chance. Tried to go for the flash, it looks like, but did not get her anywhere close to safety. So that is going to be another kill going over to the Big Ducks.
Yeah, Venjek's taking a very extended trade in the mid lane. Is going to go down to about 200 health, but now in the bot lane, Decker guy's in trouble. Could get knocked up again, but Ghost doesn't want to commit.
Enough for the turret. Yeah, the Poppy did not have an angle into a wall there, so the center will be okay. But yeah, that Ghost being blown is, you know, just adding fuel to the fire now. It's going to be even more vulnerable, this bot lane, going forward.
Yeah, this is now a completely summonerless bot lane here for the Goon squad. Axel and Ghost both still have their flashes. I'm just waiting for that 6-minute mark, or not 6 minute, level 6 mark for Ghost, when they have that grand entrance. and the quickness, and can just get right on top of Gangarithic, because that's going to be 2 more kills straight into the pockets of Excel here.
Well, Grubs secured by Necromancer up on that top side. Going to be able to lock away those first 3. Although I don't know if the Grubs are really going to get all that much value this game, Oz. I mean, the Urgot's really the only champion who could theoretically spend really any time in a side lane, and he's laning against a Malphite. So I don't really know if he's going to get all that much time to hit the tower.
Yeah, I mean, I think Finch is going to be spending a lot of time in the side lane, but they're not going to be the aggressor. They're going to be defending from Vengex, who will just want to sit AFK in a side lane, stacking that passive until the cows come home. We do see a gank here on the top side, as well as one on the bot, so cross-map plays here looking for action.
Goes going to find the knock-up once again, but Gangarithith and Decker knew that this move was coming from the mid-jungle of the Big Ducks. They're going to be able to retreat in time. And, of course, the Malphite up on the top side was not really under any threat either.
Did burn his flash, though.
Chilling up here. Oh, he did flash. Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, I didn't see that, but absolutely right there, also.
Still, not a huge expense for Sapsuite when all is said and done. Still has the unstoppable force there. Will be more than happy to keep doing what he's doing because he has a discount flash in the back pocket. And all this pressure on the bot side should be more than enough for Bardo Jr. to take this Drake fairly safely, despite the fact that they're doing it on Vision.
A little bit surprising that Sapsuite would decide to go for the flash instead of using the ultimate, right? The discount flash, as you referred to it. But, yeah, maybe just a little bit nervous about the presence of the Vi. Thinking that maybe he was going to have to use both, and feeling like the flash was going to be a little bit more instantaneous in terms of getting him towards safety. This dragon is getting burned down. Necromancer moving in, though. Could go for a steal, as is going to flash for the Q, connects the Vault Breaker, and that is going to be the kill. The Poppy does manage to smite away the dragon before she goes down. So objective over to the Big Ducks, kill over to the Goon squad as XL looking for Gangarithith here, hoping for one more for the Ducks, and that is going to be it as Vengex actually with the Baleful strike over the walls. A knockup comes down onto the Vine. Now Necromancer could be in trouble. Looking to take XL with him, will be able to do so as the Xayah gets taken down. Had already used the Featherstorm, but now Necromancer is going to get traded back as well. Very chaotic there in the fight after the dragon. I believe a 2-for-2 in the end.
Yeah, it's a 2-for-2, but it's a 2-for-2 where BDE got the Drake, and where Veigar got a couple of stacks. This Veigar already sitting at 81 on those Baleful stacks. That's kind of a few here, crewman, and that starts to get
as well.
very, very dangerous, very, very fast.
No doubt. Yeah, the Veigar, another one of those stacking champions that we're seeing so much of these days. That does get extremely powerful as we go later into the game. Finch, of course, the Orianna, no slouch in the late game either. But the Veigar really just does get to become such a threat.
Overall here, though, we are looking at a fairly even game state, crewman. Gold, dead even. CS, fairly even across the board. Some small leads for the side of Goon Squad as Axel just loses his entire health in a full rotation from Gangarithis here.
Well, he does still have a little bit of his health bar left, also. He didn't completely get wiped out there, but certainly going to be feeling the hurt after that Lux combo. So not even a full item completed yet for Gangarithith, but still already packing quite a punch on the Lux here.
It turns out you don't walk into an unwarded bush when you are a squishy ADC.
He's going to have the Featherstorm back up relatively soon, will Excel. So, you know, hopefully we'll be able to stay safe down here, as it looks like the Big Duck's going to prioritize this second spawn of the Kevins. Going to be locking those away up on the top side of the map. Necromancer not in the area, so should not be any kind of contest coming through there. As, oh, another final spark in the Featherstorm. It wasn't quite back yet. And Excel ate another light binding underneath the turret, and that is going to be kill number 3 now for the Goon squad.
Yeah, did go over to Decker Guy, though, with the Dawning Shadow, not Gangarithith with the final spark. Which, again, don't hate. If you're going to double up on the scaling for Senna with both gold and stacks, why not go for it? But this Lux, not having the greatest of times in terms of gold efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, it is farming, right? So at least you got that income going for you. And
True.
the Senna is going to do it pretty well with gold also, as we know.
You do make very good points here, crewman. But still, as the support, you love getting gold. As the ADC, you hate when your supports steal all your gold. So,
Yeah, it's been quite the controversy recently, honestly, in the community. I'm sure you've been following this a little bit as well, Alls, but lots of people saying that the support role is just a little bit too strong these days. Then you kind of just get to do everything. You get to do damage. You know, you have the wards, obviously. You get to, impact the map. You can go for roams. You can do all of this stuff, and you don't have to worry about farming or, it's like all the enemy team is always focusing the AD, right? And you kind of get free reign to do whatever you want in some respects. So, been quite the debate recently that I've been following.
yeah, I'm not entirely sold on that because support, especially through the laning phase where the difference between support and other roles is so much more important, your focus isn't on the micro. Your focus is on the macro, on unlocking yourself from the bot lane and helping out other roles, especially your jungle, but even your solo laners. And I think discounting that with, oh, you just don't need to farm. We're going to put that aside if Decker Guy is dead.
From Ghost, Decker Guy flashing away, but not in time to get away from the primordial burst of the Veigar, as Venjix was able to click on the Senna, and that was all he needed to do to pick up his third kill of the game. 6 now stacks on the Dark Seal. Necromancer, though, looking to potentially intercept the Veigar on his way back to mid lane, as the Cease and Desist will come through, and the Shockwave will bring the Veigar right into Vi's Waiting Fist, as the shutdown does go over to Necromancer, who already has his Trinity Force completed.
Yeah, Venjix did have the flash available, but just didn't have the window to flash away from that Shockwave, and again, walked into an unwarded bush. You have to be a little bit more aware of where you're roaming in moments like that. The Vi could be around. You have to go the long way, even if it means you can't get a cheeky little gank off onto the Orianna there.
Yeah, just a little bit disrespectful from Venjix there, not, respecting where the Vi could be. And just getting picked off there in a pretty vulnerable position will mean that the second dragon does go over to the side of Goon Squad as well. They're going to be able to tie up that dragon count 1-1. And it looks like we're going to have, I believe that's a Mountain Soul on the Rift for this first game.
Yeah, it certainly does look that way. And that does benefit Goon Squad fairly heavily here because they have 3 squishies that are super vulnerable to being picked off and bursted out. But when you got a shield on top of that, when you got stacking resistances to back you up a little bit, it becomes so much harder for, say, Venjix or Sapsweet to just obliterate someone like that. So it will buy more time for Soul and Necromancer to save them if it comes down to it.
Certainly. Could be very valuable.
But
go ahead.
No, please.
We are going to have a little bit of a lull state, actually, is really all I was going to mention there, as it is going to be a while until the next dragon. And these teams, the side of the Goon Squad particularly, don't really have that many tools to try to make plays happen. We can see that the Cease and Desist for Necromancer has just come back off cooldown, so could look for some kind of aggressive play if he would like to, but the targets are not really presenting themselves at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, come on, crewman. Are you really discounting New Rift Herald that much? I know it's weak, but come on.
Yes, I am.
It really is that weak. Like, yeah. Okay, you get half a turret off of it. Sapsweet taking a lot of damage in that short trade there. Could be an angle for Necromancer to use that Cease and Desist in the near future.
Oh, Venjix does have the flash, and that's going to be the flash Q, very cleanly executed by the Necromancer. Left Venjix with no room to breathe there, no room to try and flash away. Just instant CC into a dead Veigar. Nicely done, as Soul is getting heroically charged by Bardo, but this Urgot is 3 levels ahead. The Keeper's Verdict will come in, but the Cease and Desist will be there, and the Poppy no longer has her hammer to get the Vi away. Necromancer going to be able to pick up another kill, and Sapsweet does have the ultimate, but he's already lost his jungler, and Shelly will be the prize for the Goons.
Yeah, I mentioned after that first gank I was worried about Necromancer having enough of an effect on the game to buoy this team through what looked like a rough laning phase. At 3-1-2 with a 40 CS lead, I think they've succeeded.
Yeah, it's been really nice. This Vi play so far definitely has been pretty much as active as we could expect, I think, on this map to really try and put the team in a favorable position. You know, despite what we really thought was a draft that was severely outclassed by what their opponents had put together. But I think we have to say that they are in a good position right now in this game to try and pick up the first win of the night, as Bardo is looking for a cross-map play here. He's walking over a couple of wards, and Decker and Gangarivith know exactly what this Poppy is up to, and there's not much of a wave here to work with either for the side of the Ducks. Not really going to be able to find anything at all.
Yeah, you have to plan those dives a little bit better, stack the wave a bit, have it ready, and into a Lux with that Lucent Singularity, you're going to struggle because of that bulk wave clear that we just saw. You can't really expect to make that kind of play work.
Yeah, it was just, there was nothing there for Bardo. Just forced to walk away. You know, even we saw Necromancer had reset after the Herald taken and was actually moving in there behind to cover the gank also. So even if the Poppy had decided to go for it, there was a good chance that was going to get turned around on him regardless. As Vengex is still getting some good stacks here in the mid lane. Has his Archangels completed, as does the Orianna. But as we can see, lost those Dark Seal stacks thanks to those couple of deaths.
And did just burn the Flash as well, getting away from a Shockwave trade. A little bit surprising to see the Flash come out there and not either of the times they got ganked, but, you know, what can you do?
Well, the Shockwave is still available. That wasn't even utilized by Finch, so I'm not sure what Vengex was flashing away from there, but it wasn't a Shockwave. Maybe just the threat of a Shockwave?
Yeah, or maybe misread a Dissonance AoE as being the Shockwave. Kind of hard to tell. We didn't get a good chance to look at it. Just saw a brief moment of the flash there. But a little bit unfortunate for him. Is going to be very vulnerable now for the next few minutes. And with the changes to Stopwatch and the Zanya's tree, isn't going to have a real way of being safe anytime soon.
Oh, just barely. Necromancer going to get caught by that cage. Vengex could have been in trouble again there, but did have a lot of team members around to try and bail him out. As this is shaping up like a potential team fight around this third Dragonals. River control currently held by the Ducks.
No way for Sapsweet to get in. Doesn't have the TP. Used it to get back top lane. So this is a 5-on-4 here, crewman.
Is moving over. Absolutely advantageous for the side of the Goon squad. And I think this is good to see the Ducks respecting it, realizing that they're outnumbered and just giving up the objective. It's only the first Mountain Dragon. You don't have to fight for this one. So I think that is a good call, as the teleport will be canceled. But at what cost? The final spark of the light binding. Once again, the Lux finds a target. The cease and desist into the meat grinder as Soul picks up their first of the game. It's going to be the objective plus a couple of bonus kills for the Goons.
And what in the world is Axel doing here, crewman? He saw all those kills going down in his own jungle. He saw multiple members rotating towards him, and he kept blindly pushing that wave. He's going to kill Ghost for it.
Oh my goodness, that damage from the Orianna, the Rakan just popped like a balloon. Soul finding another one down there in the bottom lane. A Malphite is here now. Sapsweet is going to try and make his way in. Oh, but the Unstoppable Force is going to be flashed away from Gangarifith with some nice reactions there. Shelly almost able to take down this tier 2 in mid. And this game is quickly getting out of control for the side of the Big Ducks.
Yeah, just mechanical misplays, bad macro positioning, questionable calls all around. This was the issue, right? This was the foot in the door for Goon Squad. They knew they had a draft that needed a whole lot to go right. And BDE had a draft that just needed nothing to go wrong. Right now, everything is going wrong for BDE.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's really credit to the Goon Squad, right? And Necromancer specifically for finding so many of these angles on the Vi. You know, 6 out of 9 kill participation right now. Actually, not quite as high as the mid laner. Finch on this Orianna, 1-0-7. So good looks there as well.
Yeah, but still, feels like Necromancer has been everywhere, has had much more of an effect on this game than Bardo Jr. Despite a couple of good early rotations from the Poppy, despite a couple of good catches, just hasn't had nearly as much agency or been nearly as useful to their side lanes.
Yeah, I think it's come down to kind of the timing, right? For Necromancer, just being in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
And finding these angles to get the team in a good position, which is what we needed to see, right? In this game for this draft to really get off the ground for the side of the Goon squad. It most certainly has done so.
Oh no.
Snapsweet is going to look for the ultimate onto Gangariffith, is going to chunk down the Lux quite low. Gangariffith, no flash, might just get cut down here. Flashing forward is the Malphite, will be able to get the kill, but meanwhile, in the top side jungle, it's going to be a kill on the Poppy in return. A lot of damage coming out on the Necromancer. They will be able to take him down. The Primordial Burst from Vengex claiming the kill. So, 2 for 1 actually in favor of the Ducks. They're trying to find some purchase back in this game. Snapsweet with rotation down now from the top lane, but doesn't have the ultimate available anymore. Is still pretty tanky on the Malphite. Is going to zone away a couple of members while the rest of the team looks to engage on the Orianna, but Finch still relatively healthy as well. And I don't know if the Big Ducks are really going to be able to find anything else here. In fact, the Featherstorm going to get forced out of Excel. The Cage does find a quick stun onto Soul, but I feel like the Ducks are really pushing their luck here with so many ultimates down, and they will finally decide to back away.
Yeah, I mean, good pick by Snapsweet there, and great return by the other three in the extended fight, but boy, they really couldn't pull a whole lot of value out of all of that usage, crewman. It was such a defensive fight for them the whole way through, which just doesn't feel good for a team that is reliant on burst and falling forward at all points.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about how the side of the Goon squad really only have the Vi for engage, right? And theoretically, there is a lot more engage on what the side of the Big Ducks have. But in terms of frontline, you know, Rakan is not that tanky. And if we remember, the Poppy got picked out immediately at the start of that previous fight. So they just didn't really have anybody who could walk up safely and try and set anything else up in the play.
And just a very awkward situation for them. I want to call out as well how well Goon Squad is pulling apart the map here. Because Necromancer's power has been in those chain ganks, in affecting multiple places on the map at once, Goon Squad is continuing to commit to that identity with the immediate purchase from Soul of that first item. Hullbreaker, pardon me, it skipped
Yes.
memory for a second.
Hold on just a moment there as the final spark's going to come out. Bardo does have the case to try and get away, but the Vi is unstoppable. She goes right through it, and the Poppy is going right down into the dirt as teleports come out now from the top laners. Xayah, meanwhile, is just going to continue pushing that top wave as the call from the team. If we don't have our jungler, we can't fight the dragon. So, yeah, Excel, you might as well just push in another wave, try and get some damage on the tier 2. But this is going to be Mountain Soul Point for the Goon squad. They are now in such a fantastic position.
Yeah, that's Mountain Soul, and Excel lost the wave. They didn't have enough minions to actually finish the job there, or even get any auto attacks on that turret. So that's a split push that doesn't offer any real tangible team value. I mean, yes, there's nothing that Excel could have done to change the course of that play, but still, that feels so bad for BDE having nothing to show for giving up the 3rd out of 4 Drakes.
Yeah, definitely. They weren't really able to get anything there, and it does feel like they are starting to run out of space in this game. You know, I don't think that the Mountain Soul is, like, exceptionally high value or anything on the side of Goon Squad. You know, none of their champions really use it, you know, that efficiently or effectively, but I mean, it's still going to have value, right? It's still going to prevent the Veigar from doing that burst damage to one-shot somebody, right? You know, the Malphite is going to take a little bit longer to do any damage in a 1v1 in the side lane. You know, it's just going to make the game so much harder than it already is. They are going to look to take down this tier 1 in the mid lane, but Soul on the flank position. CC down onto the Malphite. The Urgot ultimate's come through as well. He's going to put him in the meat grinder, and the Fear is going to come out onto the jungler as well. The Rakan is going to get flipped. He's going to get shotgunned by the knee of the Urgot. The Featherstorm is going to come out to deny the cease and desist, but Vaultbreaker already charged up. Going to find the Q. The Flash Feather Pull does not get the CC onto anybody. And that is just going to be another huge team fight win for Goon Squad Gaming, 3 for 1.
And 3 for 1, the 2 main carries are still technically alive for BDE, but There's no way that you can contest this Baron. It is almost certainly Goon Squad's to take. Vengex looking to try and find it here, but I think he signed his death warrant if he sticks around.
Yeah, there's nothing the Vhagar can really do here. I mean, a cheeky Q over the wall, but Necromancer has the 1200 smite. I mean, realistically, there's just no way that the Vhagar is going to be able to get this. And that is going to be a Baron. It's not the earliest Baron we've ever seen. 26.5 minutes on the clock, but this has absolutely been slow and steady control from Goon Squad. There's never really been a point in this game where they felt like they have been the ones on the back foot, like they are being the ones that don't have the answers. They have had control pretty much the whole time.
Well, hey now, crewman. Let's not forget that first 60 seconds.
Okay, fine. That's a good point. That's a good point. The Ducks did get first blood. Fair enough.
But all jokes aside, it has been downhill from there. The Ducks needed to continue that momentum, and it feels like they really lost it from almost the moment they stepped back into lane after that.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a really strong scaling composition, right? So maybe that was actually the problem, is they were trying to be too active early and, like, going for these fights. That doesn't really feel like that was the problem, though. It really just felt like they were getting engaged on, and there was nothing they could do about it.
Yeah.
For the most part. As CC is going to come down onto Sap Suite. The Shockwave committed there as well, but the Event Horizon will deter any further follow-up. So that is a little bit of a cooldown used by the Orianna for no real gain, but in the top lane, oh, Excel had Featherstorm, but he just never saw that Vi coming.
I want to know, in what world, even without the Vi there, you send Axel to defend a turret alone against a level 16 Urgot with 2.5 items. It just feels so strange.
Not typically the lane assignment that you'd want to go for. As Bardo now on the flank is going to find the heroic charge. Sets up for the unstoppable force onto 2. Finch in trouble, flashing away, trying to stay alive, but the shield is not going to be there. And now, oh man, Soul is going to be able to pick off the Poppy from long range. And that is still going to be a positive play for the Goons, despite Bardo finding pretty decent flank. Because I said he picked off the Poppy. That was incorrect. He picked off the Vhagar. Misspoke. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, that's going to be 2 inhibitors taken down in short order by the Goon Squad, as they are now about 8,000 gold ahead, and they're going to go ahead and base. Look for this Mountain Soul in 45 seconds.
2 inhibitors, and to add insult to injury, a massive wave crashing into the bot turret that might just take it down. I'm looking at that health bar on the mini-map here, crewman, and that thing is just evaporating.
Yeah, it is barely going to survive, but it might as well be gone already. That's going to be 1 auto attack from pretty much anybody, is all that's needed to take down that last turret outside of the Duck base. And there's pretty much feels like they're out of options. Honestly, all's in this one. I mean, there's no way that they can walk in here to try to contest Mountain Soul. Their base has already been mostly destroyed. It should be very, very straightforward from here for the Goons to just kind of walk it down bot lane and close this one out nice and cleanly.
Yeah, it's just a matter of semantics at this point. Do you end the game right after this Drake, or do you give him the stay of execution for 3 minutes and end it with Baron? But...
You know, it's an interesting question in the best of series, right? Is if you prolong the game, you could potentially do some extra mental damage. So that I think that, you know, strategically, there could be an angle there.
Yeah, I feel like the mental damage has already been done. This has just been a back alley beatdown.
Yes, it has. It has, absolutely. No, we can see, it looks like the call. There is the auto attack, as foretold. Decker going to be the one to put that into the turret. And it does look like the call from Goon Squad is going to be to just go ahead and end the game right now. So we get the teleport coming in from Finch, 5 men strong, pushing down this bot lane. Wave clear is decent for the side of the big Ducks. And as we can see, the Goons a little bit hesitant to actually walk up to the turret and put themselves in engage range of the Rakan and the Malphite. So this game might actually drag on a bit longer than I thought. This is kind of a situation where the lack of engage for the side of the Goons is coming back to bite them a little bit.
Yeah, the problem is that the gold differences are just too high. There's no real alternative for BDE. They can't counter-engage. They can't look to start a real fight here. They can just buy time and delay the inevitable at this point.
Oh, it was cute from Bardo to eject the minion wave temporarily, but it's back now. And that means that once again, oh, here comes the engage. Ghost is looking for it, does find the quickness and the knock up onto Decker. The Malphite ultimate onto the other members of the teams. They're not really able to coordinate that engage, I think, as effectively as they would have liked to, as Necromancer just straight into the back line, immediately deletes the Xayah. And now Veigar is still full health over there in the back, but he's pretty much the last one left, and he's going to get flipped by the Urgot. And that's going to do it, guys. Very clean, very clinical from the Goons, and it's going to be a triple kill for the Senna to end this one out. 32 minutes on the game clock, and Goon Squad Gaming going to take the first Nexus of the night.
Yeah, looked like a rough draft and was one that we were very concerned about here, crewman, but a convincing win nonetheless, largely on the back of incredible play from Necromancer here.
Yeah. I mean, we were very negative on that draft. I mean, I have to wonder if maybe that was like the opposite of a caster curse, right? If we caster blessed Goon Squad by being so anti towards their draft. It's hard to say for sure. But definitely, one thing is for sure, and that is that we were incorrect in our assertion of what was going to happen in that game.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I'm just looking at these stats, crewman, and it boggles the mind here that every member on Big Duck Entourage, except for Vengex, was outdamaged by every single member of the Goon Squad team.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
what a statistic.
That's pretty insane. And, honestly, it was pretty close for Vengex, too. The only person that the Veigar did actually outdamage was, ironically enough, the Vi, who was doing all of that work to get the team ahead in the first place. So, yeah, I mean, it was a tour de force from the Goon Squad here in game number 1. They really were performing across the board and felt like their opponents just had no answers whatsoever.
Absolutely. Just incredible play, and definitely cements Goon Squad as feeling confident moving into games 2 and 3. My question for you, crewman, who is your player of the game? I feel like it's obvious. I feel like there is one answer, but I'm curious what you have to say about it.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I don't know if it's necessarily that obvious. As already mentioned, obviously every member of Goon Squad did perform very well in this game to give them such a decisive victory, but I am a little bit biased as a jungle main and somebody who was also a Vi one trick for quite a while. I think I would give it to the Necromancer, who did do all of that work in the early minutes to get them into that favorable position. Had the objective control as well, only lost that first set of grubs and I guess one dragon, but I really feel like the Vi pretty much ran that game almost start to finish.
I 100% agree. That's where my vote would have gone as well. But, crewman, I do believe it is time for us to step aside for just a couple of minutes while these teams get prepped for Game 2. BDE needing to change their fate here to keep their unblemished record, while Goon Squad looking to pick up their first match win. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're just going to jump straight into this Game 2 Champion Select between the Big Duck Entourage and Goon Squad Gaming. The Goon Squad with a very decisive victory in game number 1. They are now going to be moving over to the red side as the Ducks have selected blue for their second attempt.
Are we at all surprised we're seeing the Urgot band here, crewman?
No, not especially, but we might be a little bit surprised that the Vi is not getting banned. May potentially picked away here on B1, but that just felt like, according to us at least, maybe the bigger problem, actually, in that first game for the Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Vi being so powerful was also a symptom of the draft that Goon Squad had built around it, where Vi needed to be that trigger. So trying to force GSG into a comp where that's not the case could lessen the power of the Vi, but it also allows Goon Squad to do things like immediately slap up the lovers duo in the bot lane.
Yeah, it's very, very bold, I would say, from the Goon Squad here, just to lock it in the bot duo that their opponents played in the previous game, basically saying, "Here, let us show you how it's done." Right? We're gonna play this better and win with it, what you couldn't do. So, gonna be interesting to see if that does end up coming through. As the Senna is also going to be switching sides for this next game, as the Ducks gonna pick that one up alongside the Rel.
How do you feel about that combo? Definitely hews more to what you expect from the Senna than the Lux pairing here. And it's not Rungle, because the Viego's already been picked, but certainly a different, or a slightly different style of champ than what we're used to seeing when we normally see something like the Ornn or the Maokai.
Yeah, I mean, it looks better on paper, I think, definitely. But what do we know, really, Alls? I mean, we thought Senna Lux was a terrible idea. Look how that went.
Well,
One with flying colors, so.
The Senna Lux struggled for a few minutes until Necromancer managed to get down there and put an end to that.
I suppose. But yeah, I do feel like that the Senna Rel is potentially a little bit more threatening. Definitely a safer situation for the Senna at the very least. But the Orianna gonna get grabbed once again here by the Goon Squad, as the mid laner had a great performance on it in game number 1 there. Finch gonna be piloting that one once again. And now top lane bans looks to be the option from the Big Ducks. Gonna try to see if they can deny something, as well as that Vi is going to get taken away now in the second ban phase. Echo and Ace Soul going to be removed by GSG. And yeah, looks like Necromancer's going to be playing the Jarvan this time instead. Another great early game ganking option that he can once again theoretically use to set the team up for success.
Yeah, I mean, J4 is a great early game jungler. Not quite as good a duelist as the Vi is. So this does leave open the window for BDE to try and stage some invades here on Bardo Jr. with this Viego to try and push for some early aggression, as that was a very late lock-in, but the Vex coming out for this mid lane.
Yeah, interesting selection into the Orianna. Does feel like the Orianna has a little bit more guaranteed value, but, perhaps the Ducks have a plan in mind with this Vex. Certainly the Vex does have a lot of burst damage, a lot of AoE damage as well. So potentially just looking to get that first kill for the Viego to start resetting through the team fight could be the angle, as we are going to see the Volibear come through as well. A very popular pick in the top lane these days.
Yeah, both of these teams are setting up some pretty scary wombo combos in the fight pit of J4. The Orianna Ball, the Ornhorn now on top of it, Rakan, Viego, Rel, Vex, Volibear. These are all champions that have hugely powerful short-range AoE attacks.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm very curious. It feels like both of these squads are looking more for that kind of beat-down team fight. I'm curious how they're going to run the early game with that in mind.
Yeah, it does feel like the Jarvan and the Viego, well, the Volibear as well, are kind of like the three champs in this game that are going to be, above average strong in the early game. Like you already mentioned, the Viego definitely a stronger duelist than the Jarvan in the 1v1, but it can be a little bit awkward because you have to find the Jarvan when he doesn't have his combo up, right? Where he can just EQ away from you and you really don't have any way of chasing after him. So that's, not necessarily going to be the angle for the Viego. It will be very interesting, as you say, to see what the junglers especially decide to prioritize in this second early game.
Yeah, and we saw how strongly Necromancer won last game. Not only with the lane pressure, but with the farming, with the objectives, keeping even with Bardo Jr. throughout the match. There's a lot that Bardo Jr. needs to do to step up here. And moving from Poppy to Viego, yeah, they have a lot of the same energy insofar as you're kind of sitting on that front line, you're diving deep into the enemy team. But by the same token, Viego requires you to play 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. Poppy allows you to play off that back foot far more effectively. So,
yeah, true.
Needing to be aggressive when we haven't particularly seen that from the BDE jungler does give me a little bit of pause here, crewman.
Yeah, definitely is an interesting choice. It is a big pivot, like you're saying, to go from something like the Poppy to the Viego is traditionally thought of as a much more aggressive pick. But I will say, though, the Viego is actually one of the most played for Bardo here. He has 20 games this season with a 60% win rate. So
Not
theoretically, this is actually more of a comfort pick than the Poppy was that we saw previously. So maybe that's actually kind of the thought process here for the Big Ducks, is we just want to put our jungler on comfort. To see if he can have that stronger performance, can have that step up to give them a better look here in Game 2.
Well, as we wind through client draft here, crewman, overall thoughts. Who do you think is taking Game 2? Does BDE force a Game 3 here, or can Goon Squad find that same magic that they had in Game 1 and just run through this series?
Yeah, I don't know, Alls. I mean, normally, I definitely tend to lean towards the team with Senna when Senna is in the game. She does tend to win a lot, and I do like both compositions actually quite a bit. I feel like both teams put together some pretty compelling stuff here, but just given the fact that Game 1 was as one-sided as what we saw, right? The Goons really felt like they had all the answers in that first game. And they have a very, very formidable team fighting composition here. I mean, really, what more could you ask for? You have the Jarvan bridge to get you through the early game. You have the Ornn scaling up later is going to provide an incredibly valuable front line for the Xayah and the Orianna to late game scaling hyper carries. And then you have the Rakan for engage that can be supplemented by the Jarvan and the Ornn Horn. It just all kind of comes together really beautifully on the side for Goon Squad. And I think when you combine the fact that they do have such a clear strategy with this draft, with the fact that they had so much control in game number 1, I feel like it's pretty clear that they should be favored going into this second game as well. But as I mentioned, the Big Ducks have a pretty interesting draft as well. Definitely some stuff to keep an eye out for here. Where's your head at? Are you pretty much aligned, or do you feel differently?
I mostly agree. A large part of my concern with BDE, though, is looking at their damage output. As we look towards that late game, the 20-30 minute team fights, Volibear, he falls off very hard outside of the early game in terms of damage. He becomes a frontliner, he gets to sit there forever, but he's not exactly going to be shredding through you. Viego, alright, he's somewhere in the middle. But Vex, she's a burst mage, she's not going to have nearly as much output as an Orianna will in terms of consistent teamfight damage. Senna is about your only consistent teamfight damage. And relying on one champion, it works. We can see it. We have seen Protect the Cog comps work before, and Protect the Senna is not significantly different. But that's a lot of pressure to put on one player. And
Yeah.
I don't know that they have the resources to manage that in team fights when facing up against 3 great engaged champs and 2 high-powered damage dealers.
Yeah, Excel definitely ended up having a little bit of a rough time in that previous game. At least doesn't have to play into the Vi this time around, so that I think will be a bright spot, a promising sign for the side of the big ducks. But I do tend to somewhat agree that it does feel like there's a very clear way that this big duck composition falls apart, right? If you do manage to pick off the Senna, they lose all their consistent damage, as you said. But kind of on the same token, honestly, the Orianna and the Xayah are really the only two main damage dealers for Goon Squad. So, your point is valid that Vex is, doesn't have that consistent uptime on the damage. She's all about burst, but if you get the burst on the right targets, if you manage to assassinate the carries for Goon Squad, then those fights still can look very good for the Ducks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're just going to have to wait and see how it all shakes out, crewman.
Indeed, indeed. With that, let's go ahead and get into another break before we jump onto the Rift for game number 2. See you there.
Awakened in ruins to the echoes of pain. These are good, these are good. Cold and empty, lifeless remains. These are good, these are good. Fields of the fallen, blood-washed in rain. This cannot be all that will be. So you have torn this world apart. You came for our suffering. So we'll bleed, cut us deep, find the death that you seek. But just remember, we retreat, but we live on. Those that die aren't forgone. Just remember. Gone is our home now, it's only memories. These are good, these are good. Looking onto a life that can never be. What did you believe? Believe you would find. And so you have
All right, chatters, lurkers, all you very fine denizens of the internet. Welcome back to Summoner's Rift for our second game of the night. We are going to have this time around the Big Ducks over on the blue side and Goon Squad Gaming taking positions on the red, looking for the 2-0, and the Ducks looking for their first quote-unquote legit win of the season, despite the fact that they do already have those two on in the standings. And I never really thought that I would say this, Alls, but I think that the team with Senna does not have the stronger scaling draft, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird to think, especially without there being another infinite scaler on the other side, but you're absolutely right. The late game here, the power of Orianna, Ornn, and Xayah that's a high hill to overcome, and I don't think that Senna alone has the capacity to do so.
Yeah, pretty much. That's absolutely my thought process as well. Interesting to see we do have the Jarvan Necromancer going for the Electrocute option. It does indicate that he is going to be very, very active in these early minutes. That is a rune, of course, that does not scale really that well into the later parts of the game. That's really, you'd go more for the Conqueror if that was what you were looking for. Not going to be the case for Necromancer in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the early game pressure outside of that first gank worked quite well for Necromancer in the last game, so plenty of options here, and to be fair, far more options in terms of actual gank ability, with the Rakan in the bot lane to help lock down a target early, with the Ornn in the top lane to keep Sapsweet in place. It's much easier for Necromancer to find those level 3, level 4 ganks here.
Yeah, even the Vex can be a pretty viable target, right? No dashes for that champion. So I'm not actually sure how that interaction works. If Jarvan EQs while Vex has her little fear thing ready, does he get feared out of the EQ animation, or does that still go through? I'm not actually sure.
I believe he is functionally unstoppable during his EQ because it's not actually a movement. It is a displacement that happens to be self-targeted. Which is why he can, you know, get out of things like, not Vi-Slam, but most CC he can just drag himself out of.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye out on that, as the top laners are trading very, very aggressively in the Ornn Volibear matchup. It's a lore matchup, as any of you lore nerds will be aware. There's two of the elder gods of the Freljord, I believe, Volibear and Ornn, and their sister Anivia makes the three.
Man, all 5 lore nerds out there must be so happy you're bringing this up.
Yeah, I thought they'd be pretty excited about it. I'm sure they're all in Twitch chat right now as well. So shout out to you guys.
Hey, right,
we are once again. Yeah, and then they, you know, retcon them and write new ones because they're so good at it. You know, they like to keep making new ones. But
hey, original
again,
Rammus lore.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, there you go. Prime example. Both junglers did clear towards the top side. If you're going to be able to get that North Crab as, yeah, continued heavy trading between those Elder Gods. But the Volibear did get the wave in, so he's going to go for the reset now, it looks like.
Yeah, no real chance of a Necromancer gank being successful up there. Look at the vision coverage in the river. Between Sapsweet and Bardo Jr., they have that thing lit absolutely up right now, which will make it very difficult for Necromancer to do anything up there. And unfortunately, this wave is pushing away for Gangarithis and that Decker guy, so they'll have to look for a dive if they want anything, which I think means we're not going to see a pre-5-minute gank out from this J4.
Yeah, is less than ideal, right? Especially with the Electrocute selected. Definitely want to be looking for the early value there. And as you say, Oz, no opportunities really presenting themselves quite yet, as Decker did go in pretty aggressively there, looking for the CC. But it's actually going to eat the worst end of that trade.
Yeah, speaking of this bot lane, though, crewman, have you noticed what's interesting about how BDE has handled this?
What's that?
Well, Senna's farming. This is not a fasting Senna.
Wow.
How do you feel about
obviously
that?
This is well, it's not my preference, but this is certainly not unheard of. You know, it's you know, relatively common as well. I'm not sure what those exact numbers are. Or, you know, what's actually more common, the farming as opposed to the fasting Senna, but certainly I think a viable strategy. You know, Rel, you would get some value out of the gold. You know, she'd obviously be able to get significantly more tanky much earlier in the game, but you know, less value than something like the Lux, for example, where you're going to get that big spike from your first item.
I mean, sure, but it's no worse than something like a Maokai or an Ornn being down there and getting all those CS.
Absolutely. You know, I think there would be some value there for the Rel, no doubt, but Excel just wanting that extra income this time around, as the Goon squad is aptly named, looking for a play right now on Sapsweet in the top lane. The knockup will come through. The Volibear is going to try and go for the Gathering Storm. Get a little bit of extra health, prevent himself from getting burst down, and that was the flash off of the J4. So obviously relatively even trade, although it was the flash from the Volibear as well, so...
Yeah, that turret damage ramp, just too powerful. Decker Guy juggled the early aggro fairly well, but Necromancer forced to take 2 shots after the ultimate. That's just a little bit too much for a jungler that doesn't have any tank items.
Forge gods. Ooh, going the wrong direction there on the ram. A little bit unfortunate for Soul.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough read. Sapsweet was sitting right on top of the ram there, and it's just gonna die to the bonk.
Okay. Yeah, there's the tank mage assassin strikes again.
Yeah, Brittle does a lot of damage, and nobody respects exactly how powerful it is in the early game, I feel like.
Clearly, Sapsweet did not respect it in that particular instance. I guess just was expecting the shield to come through and give him enough health to survive, but the bonk came through before the shield, and that was the end of the bear. As the stun is going to come out from the bush, Shadow Surge connects. Only onto the Rakan, though. He's going to be able to dash back towards his lover with the Battle Dance, and they are going to be just fine. Vex ult committed. Not going to get anything for it. Oh, I guess they got to heal.
Yeah, but this puts Finch so far ahead here, crewman. Already up 25 CS, crashing this huge wave. Look at the size of that monster here. And going to get a turret plate as well. And I think Finch should be A-okay here. Has the shockwave
splash. Will have to use it, to get away from the Looming Darkness, I believe. Is that one on the... For the Vex, as EQ over the wall. Finds the knockup. Rakan follow-up. Heartbreaker away for Bardo. Stay alive. Everybody just... forced to use their big cooldowns in retreat recently. Yeah, most of them able to survive.
Venjek's also backing here. Finch doesn't have flash, but can crash another wave, expand this CS difference even further here. And Venjex, who was already on a champ that, has a little bit less value, is feeling rough right now.
Decker looking for the knockup onto Excel. It will flash away, but now the Senna, no flash. EQ from the Jarvan going in as Cataclysm as well, and he's going to get both of them in the cage, and that is going to be absolutely free-firing time for the Xayah. Getting those feathers down. We'll only be able to get the kill onto the Senna, though. Roche a little bit too tanky to burst down. We did have Viego rotating over as well, but still, very worthwhile play, and there's that early action from the Jarvan that we were looking for.
Yeah, did take Axel's flash and heal there. Ghost, without the Magnet Storm, just about powerless to do anything. And Bardo, similarly so, without the Heartbreaker, without the flash. Just great read by Necromancer, and great job by Decker Guy, not overcommitting to landing his spells, just gating off the space so that Excel couldn't get away.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the Rakan who set that up, right? It was Decker coming in on the flank from the Tri-Brush that pushed Senna further down the lane and made it impossible for her to get away from the Jarvan, right? So really props to Decker there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now he's in the top lane. Look at this. This Rakan is all over the place. He is going to be spotted, so the element of surprise not working in his favor necessarily.
And Soul not exactly able to offer a lot of support anyway, without the flash, without the Call of the Forge God, with only a third of his health bar, is in a bit of a rough spot, but it'll buy enough space for the Ornn to push in this wave, get a reset off, and be able to walk back to lane having no TP. So, real valuable job by Decker Guy. And also keeps him up here in time to start defending these grubbies if he wants to, if his team thinks it's a good idea.
Well, it is actually the side of the Ducks that have more numbers in the areas. Necromancer is going to blast Cone into the pit and is now thinking maybe this wasn't such a great idea. We'll have to EQ out. Decker flashing and Battle Dancing ignited, though burning down. Will barely survive on the Rakan. Only one Kevin in this second batch has been secured thus far by the side of the Big Ducks, and now it is going to be Goon Squad moving in as the Ornn has returned with a full HP bar, and in goes the Jarvan with the Cataclysm, the Shockwave on top as well. That's going to be the kill onto Ghost. They managed to pick off the support as the Big Ducks were a little bit too slow there on the retreat.
And remember, crewmen, the important number for Kevin Denial is 2. You need to kill 2 of the grubs as the defending team to stop those little Twitch chatters from spawning. They only got 1. So that means now that the split push from Soul, from Finch in the mid to late game is going to be just that much more powerful.
Yeah. And honestly, I think something that is a little bit less talked about is, oh my god, that demolish damage on the turret was crazy. There's the already we're seeing the value from the Kevins as well as the Twitch chatters, as you mentioned. But I think a less talked about or discussed aspect of the Grub buff is the fact that even in situations where you're not in a side lane, right? Even when you're grouped up as 5, if you have Baron as well and you have pressure on the map, you just destroy turrets really quickly, right?
Absolutely.
It just gives your opponents less time to defend against the siege. So with a comp like this, with all this engage, that's something else to consider is when and if they do get a Baron buff, they're going to be additionally threatening with that as well.
Yeah, speaking of buffs here, crewman, both teams looking ready to try and contest this Drake. But mid lane, Vengex has already been pushed out, does have the TP available, but is going to have to reset if he wants to use it, so deep numbers advantage here for the Goon Squad.
Yeah, they do have full control over the area right now, pushing both lanes, as you mentioned, and looking to secure their first dragon of the game. Still not sure what kind of soul we're going to be getting in this one. Have to wait till this Cloud Dragon gets taken down, but it's likely going to be a pretty powerful one, given the dragons that have already been secured. Bardo's not going to be able to get in here in time. Not going to find the Spectral Maw either. Now going to get CC'd by the Rakan. The follow-up from the Jarvan, but maybe it was a little bit too much. The counter engage from the Shadow Surge. The Feather pullback's pretty good, though, and the Necromancer is not deterred, goes in for the Cataclysm, and the EQ out is not going to come through in time, though, for Bardo as he gets traded back. A return, and Soul has found a big old flank, the teleport into the bottom lane. He's looking to cut off Excel on the retreat path, finds so much CC onto this Senna. No damage follow-up there as quite yet. Excel might be able to get back underneath the turret, but no. In the end, the command dissonance from the Orianna will be there to claim the kill. In goes the Volibear now. Sap Sweet looking forward with the Stormbringer, but the rest of the team, the jungle and the AD have both already been taken down. The follow-up's just not there for the Bear, and it's going to be all GSG all day.
6 kills to 1 crewman. This Orianna in particular is so massive. Sitting at 3-0-1, sitting at a nearly 40 CS lead. She is just so powerful in this mid lane, and Soul already is incredibly tanky, incredibly resilient. You saw how many people were just wailing on him forever there, and it felt like his health bar took ages to move even in the slightest bit. This is the kind of team fight concerns that are just going to get worse for BDE. They've got to be very concerned about moving forward.
Yeah. Let's, did you get a look at the soul for this game? I haven't quite been able to, looks like it might be Hextech, actually. Yeah, I see the Hex gates on the map. So, Shockwave in the bot lane. Excel in trouble. The last auto attack is going to come through after the flash, and Excel has just not been your night, my friend.
No. Excel is, of course, a substitute for BDE, so perhaps feeling a little bit of that pressure of not being on the main roster. But boy, has it been a night that he will want to forget.
Yeah. You were mentioning the tankiness of the top laners a little bit earlier. Interesting to see that the Ornn has also gone for the Unending Despair, like the Volibear. This was a build that Volibear is the one who initially popularized, right? But it does feel like a lot of different champions have just sort of identified that this item is actually just really powerful, and we are seeing it more and more. As they are hitting each other right now, the top laners, they are feeling the despair. It is not ending. And that is going to be an engage in the mid lane as well. As CC comes through, and Ghost is just shredded so quickly. That Rel looked like she had no resistances at all. That is going to be immediately another kill going over to the Xayah, I believe, got the last hit on that one.
Yeah, and they're lucky that they didn't continue that. Looked like Decker was looking for Axel or Bardo. Would have been very disastrous for them, but thankfully nothing on the map that they can do afterwards. They won't be able to take that and transition into a neutral objective or take down a turret at all. They just get that one kill and back out for now.
Yeah, but overall, Alls, this is very much feeling like a continuation of game number 1, right? It feels like a Goon Squad, with that momentum that they picked up, they have just been able to keep that going straight into the second game. They show no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, and the problem for me here, crewman, is I don't see what BDE can do proactively to turn this game around. Obviously, they can wait and look to make use of Goon Squad mistakes, but they're so far behind. They have champions that
It's
need to
rough.
have leads to be engagers like the Volibear. You can't jump in when you don't have the tankiness to survive being on the front line. Bardo, with just the Kraken Slayer, can't be in there causing chaos in the backline. Vengex can't use that ultimate to get onto the backline when you just explode in the blink of an eye. So it's very, very awkward for BDE. And playing on the back foot like this, turtling up, waiting to scale, waiting for mistakes, that grinds on the soul almost as much as being ground into the dirt does. So for BDE, it's going to be very hard for them to sit back and wait.
I mean, definitely. When you are in the losing team in a situation like this, you absolutely have to choose your moment very, very carefully, right? Because realistically, you only get one shot from here. If you lose another big fight, if the Goon Squad, get some multi-kills, wipe you in a team fight, and get an objective on top, it's probably just going to be lights out from there. So see if they can get anything. In the meantime, the first Hextech Dragon is spawning right now. I think this is when you can give up. I like the fact that they're looking for a cross map here. We'll be able to get the Shelly charge into the tier 1. Twitch chatters do make their appearance into the top lane. The Stormbringer as well, just to disable that turret. But the Volibear nerfs coming through here as the turret has been re-enabled. And the Call of the Forge God is going to get the CC onto both. And the turret has ramped up. They're not able to take down the turret in time. And Soul, with the assistance of the turret in the 2v2. Oh, but the Heartbreaker comes back out. And the Ornn overchased just a little bit there. He overextended past his ally, the turret. And that is going to mean it turns into a 1-for-1, and the cross map is actually going to be somewhat successful for the Ducks.
Yeah, they do get a kill and the turret. However, look at the expense that they had to put in. That's the Volibear ult, the Viego ult, the Senna ult. That's the loss of the Drake on the bot side, and the kills went even because Sapsweet died. It's a very weak victory for BDE.
Definitely true. At least it is something, but you're absolutely right, Alls. It's not nearly enough. And, they are going to need to find some kind of miracle, it feels like, in this game, as Bardo is going to go for the Spectrum on a Necromancer, but the Viego is just immediately 100-0'd. He just never had any chance to do anything. He got one stun, and his punishment was instant death.
Yeah, they needed a miracle, and instead they found a disaster. 2 free kills handed over to an already enormous Orianna, now sitting at 6-0-1 with a almost 4,000 individual gold lead. That is staggering at 19 minutes, Crewman.
That's a lot of gold. Yeah, it's quite a lead. As the tier 3 now is going to be the target. Nice engage from Ghost. Gets 3 with the Magnet Storm, but the damage just isn't really there. Kangaroo is shredding people from the back line. Does take a big chunk there. I'm not actually even sure what took half of the Zaya's health right there, but definitely was a lot of damage that did come out and will deter this Goon Squad push for now. Shadow Surge is going to connect onto the Orianna. Finch flashed away, creating a little bit of extra space. Decker going back in with the Grand Entrance. Almost was the death of the Rakan there, but Gangrel is there to defend her lover. Will find a bunch of roots with the Blade Caller, but Finch in the end will have to be sacrificed as the Goons overstayed just a little bit in the bot lane.
Yeah, that's an expensive sacrifice to make too, as Finch was sitting on 1,000 gold shutdown there. That's all going into Axel's pockets to bring him just about back to even with Gengarifith. But, boy, a little bit of overextension, a little bit of greed from the Goon Squad. It gives life to BDE, but there's still a ton more for them to do if they're going to win this game, Crewman.
Yeah, we are just now cresting the 20-minute mark now. So the Baron has arrived onto the map, still 2.5 minutes out on the next Dragon. I have to wonder, the side of the Goon Squad have to feel that they are in such a commanding lead right now. I have to wonder if they are going to play aggressively towards this Baron, or do you feel like it would be better, since you also have the scaling draft, to just play towards the Dragon Soul? What do you think?
I think you can be greedy here, Crewman. I think you can play for both. I don't think there's any reason that you have to sacrifice one or the other. I think you can start setting up vision around both. You can have the split pushes available in Soul and Finch, and you can be prepared to respond to whatever BDE does. You crush them at that objective, and then you take both of them in rapid-fire succession.
The most aggressive line. A player after my own art halls. We should really queue together more.
You don't want to play with me.
To come through. Oh, you don't say that. As Soul is going to find a knock-up on a Sap Suite. Shockwave as well has already been utilized, and it's just going to be far too much damage for the Volibear to survive. That is going to be yet another kill for the Goon Squad in the side lane.
And that now starts a timer here for BDE. They have to find an engage very soon, and the flash from Ghost was trying so desperately for it. But now, with Finch split pushing on the bot side, they need to respond here. They need to either find a kill, force Finch to TP in, or send somebody down, because otherwise, that exposed inhibitor is going to disappear so fast. And you can see they're forced to pull off from the mid lane. They're forced to give away Prio on this Baron. And that might just be enough for Goon Squad to go ahead and take it here.
Potentially. We are less than a minute out now on the next Dragon, and at least Ghost was able to get the flash off of the Xayah with that previous attempt. So that is something. But as we can see here, the Ducks not in any kind of position to go for a fight right now, and as we can also see, the Goons have elected to start up the objective. Baron Nashor slowly getting burned down. Ghost is going to move in now, see what's going on. Baron still at about 8k, still relatively healthy, but Viego on the complete opposite side of the map. I guess that was Bardo just not expecting his opponents to go for this play because he is not around. So this is just going to be the Baron going over. And they do have time now to rotate towards the Dragon if they would like to, or perhaps just push a lane instead. I mean, it's not a big deal if you give up this Dragon to your opponents. If you can get more on the map while they take the Dragon, I think that would be the better play for the side of the Goons.
But once again, crewmen, they fall into the issue of who are they going to catch out?
Getting engaged on, that's Decker flashing in, does find a good amount of CC and sets up for the Shockwave. Jungle support going to be instantly deleted for the side of the Big Ducks, and now the Goons on the offensive. Volibear going in with the Stormbringer and immediately flashing away, wondering if maybe he should have ulted in that direction as well. The tier 2 in the mid lane will go down, continuing to siege are the Goons, thinking about putting some pressure now on this mid tier 3. Don't have too much of a minion wave to work with at the moment, as Decker is going to go in to find the knockup. Does trade himself for it, though, as he did manage to pick up the turret aggro with that move. The turret itself will get taken down, though. Necromancer forced to EQ away. They can't. Oh, the last shot from the cannon minion. It will be enough. The mid inhibitor goes down. Featherstorm, though, forced out. The flash. It's going to be Ghost finds all 4 with the engage. Will it be enough? If this isn't the moment for the Big Ducks, then no moment will ever present itself. They get another shutdown onto the mid laner. They manage to take down Soul as well. Ghost with a hero move there finds the engage. They lost their Senna, but still a positive fight for the Big Ducks. Can they get the Dragon as well?
Yeah, they definitely have the numbers advantage here. Just Gangariffith and Necromancer. They could contest this even without their ultimates, but it would be dangerous. Might just be looking for a
flash
steal here.
Yeah, I don't think Gangariffith can really walk up here. Necromancer does have a blast cone, but doesn't really have any vision in the pit, so this is going to be difficult. He looks like he wants to go for it. Does get stunned over the wall, though, and the fear comes through, and the Jarvan will just get taken down. So I don't know if that was really necessary to go for the steal on the objective. I do understand, though, in the end, it's not going to be too consequential. Definitely, it was the team fight in the mid lane that was the big swing there for the Ducks. They're in a better position now.
Yeah, and that basically burns away any of the power of this Baron buff. It's just Gangariffith who has it left. So we'll be able to get a little bit of a push off if he wants over this next 30 seconds, but overall, the mid inhibitor is the only prize here, crewmen. And don't get me wrong, that's a very big one. That gives a lot of pressure around these next neutral objectives as it starts to push into the base, but for now, BDE has managed to stave off the worst of all possible worlds.
Absolutely. That's really, I think, the key thing here, is things were looking incredibly grim for the Ducks, right? It was looking like they were on their last legs. Is that what Ducks have? Is it legs? No. It's
yes.
not
yes.
flippers either.
They have legs. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I thought maybe there was another word for them. But no, that makes sense. With their last ducky little leg. But thanks to that team fight, they did manage to get a little bit of gold back. They have 2 items now on Viego, 2 items on Senna, very close to 2 items on Vex as well. But as we can see, this bot lane inhibitor already exposed, and that is now the target for the Goon Squad, looking to make this a 2 inhibitor game. Fear does come out. Ghost looking for an engage once again. Flash still not quite off cooldown for Gangariffith. Does have the Feather Storm back at least, as an engage comes out from the Necromancer, only onto the Volibear, though again, the Rel finds 4 with the Magnetstorm. Viego trying to get into the backline, and he shuts down the Xayah right at the start of the fight. The reset's starting to come through. Decker's gonna get taken down next. It's another massive fight as the Ducks defend the base once again. The inhibitor still standing as well. The Rel engaging once again. Necromancer diving forward. Actually gets some healing there from the Sundered Sky. Excel now trying to chase forward onto the Orianna, but the Bash Bros, the Ornn and the Jarvan pinch from behind, and Sapsweet is just getting really distracted by this tasty-looking Clockwork Lady, neglected to peel for his backline, and that is going to mean that just in their moment of triumph, when things were looking so promising for the Ducks, after another heroic engage from the Rel, it's all going to fall apart. Soul teleporting into the mid lane, taking down these Nexus turrets. It's only Volibear alive. He's got Viego and Vex in about 5 seconds, but the Nexus is already exposed. And if the side of the Goon Squad just lay their auto attacks into that one, that is going to be the game. 27 minutes on the clock, guys. And Goon Squad Gaming with the 2-0.
And crewman, big props for that fight has to go to Finch. Beautiful spacing on the backside, staying nice and far away from all the damage dealers. Yeah, he got low at the end, but the fact that he didn't get low until those last minutes is why that got so bad for BDE. Despite a beautiful series of engages, despite great looks at winning that fight, they just couldn't touch the Orianna, and with all the gold, all the power she had, they needed to take her out.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, down the stretch there in that fight, they all overcommitted to try to get the Orianna, right? They chased past the Ornn and the Jarvan, and Senna just kind of was right-clicking forward and then just took a big old hammer and a lance to the face, and that was that.
Yeah, Ornn and Jarvan able to do a lot of peeling in the end to keep Orianna safe long enough, and I love the boldness from Soul as well at the end there to say, yeah, Finch is probably alive. I'm going to TP into the base and end this game. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was the right call, right? Able to identify when the team fight was won, and going for the throat is something that we like to see. Knowing when you have the angle to win the game is very, very important. But yeah, I mean, honestly, pretty convincing from the Goon Squad tonight. They maybe had a couple of whoopsies here and there, but decisively the better team on the evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And this does bring BDE into a bit of an awkward spot because they were on top of the league with that 2-0, but having played their first match and looking fairly vulnerable, yeah, either one of two things is true. Either this Goon Squad team is one of the best in the league, and they just happen to be matched up against the one team that could beat them last week, or Goon Squad is solidly in the middle, and BDE is going to struggle down the stretch. Or it could be neither of those. It could be that Goon Squad just showed out beyond their means today. We'll just have to see.
We will. It's obviously too soon to tell for sure, you know, which, if any of those scenarios are true alls, but certainly some interesting things to consider, to ponder as we move forward further into the season. Of course, it'll be interesting to see the other results that did come in tonight as well. Like if Agni Kai picked up another win tonight, you know, if it looked good as well for Agni Kai, then maybe that would lend some credence to your theory that maybe the Goon Squad are actually just one of the better teams and win against, you know, potentially the best team in week 1. You know, maybe that was the case, or you know, we'll just have to see. Like you said, it's too early to call. But as far as this match is concerned, and this game 2 in particular, and I'm gonna get to ask you first this time, Alls. Right. Who's your POG?
Ooh. You know, there's a part of me that wants to give it to Necromancer again, because did what he had to do as the jungler to win that game. But just because of how well that last fight was played, and how well they played throughout the game, in terms of positioning, in terms of spell usage, I think I have to give it to Finch.
Yeah, I think Finch is a good shout. You know, did obviously lead the damage chart as well on the Orianna there. Looks like, what is that, 26.5k for the Orianna in a 27-minute game?
Yeah, so, just a few thousand damage.
Just under 1k a minute for Finch in that one. That is definitely substantial, let's say. I think my vote personally would actually be for Decker for the Rakan. I thought, you know, Zaya Rakan is not necessarily known for being strong in lane, but they definitely were on the front foot down there in the 2v2. And I thought overall, Decker just had a lot of really great engages in this game that set the rest of the team up for success. You know, he was a great ball carrier for the Orianna to assist her in getting out those nice high damage numbers. And I just thought he was kind of the piece that pulled it all together in this one.
Very fair. Very fair. You make very good points there, crewman. I think there are many, many players who could be given the nod here. It was a team effort and came together beautifully.
Definitely strong showings across the board tonight for the Goon squad. Looking forward to seeing what they can accomplish in future weeks as well. Obviously going to feel fantastic for them also, getting their first match win of the season here in week 2, not having to wait too long for that. But is there anything else you wanted to add, Alls? Any other final thoughts here on week 2 before we close things out?
No, I think we've said pretty much everything. I'm just looking forward to seeing how this league develops because it feels like there are plenty of teams that have the potential to turn out to be stars, and it will be fascinating to see how they square up against each other here.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to tracking that as well as we continue further into Season 11. But for Week 2, that is going to do it for our coverage, guys. So for myself, from Alls, from the entire production team at Blue Otter, thank you everybody very much for watching, and we will see you next week for some more Plat League action. Good night.